Hey everybody, it's Emma. I know it's been a long time since I've done one of these sit down and talk videos. So much has been going on, and it just kind of like I just needed a break from everything. But I have got a topic today that I want to talk to you guys about. And honestly, for me, it's something extremely important. It's not necessarily about me in general, it's about a sexual predator that I have found coming from the entertainment industry. We're going to be talking about Dan Schneider. And the reason I call him a predator, or at least a sexual exploiter, is because of the recent things that have come out on social media and through the news based upon some of the people that worked on some of their most popular shows. But we're not only talking about Dan Schneider. I want to talk about all these networks in general. Why are they not protecting our children? I'm going to give you some examples of both because Nickelodeon has been just as bad as Disney. And we need to bring this to attention. So before we get into anything, go ahead and check out my website. It's Emma Lynn Dowd, and you can see all of my other social media. It's all Emma Lynn Dowd as well. So you can find anything that you want. I'm always on there. And if you want to talk to me directly, you absolutely can. Of course, you can like, subscribe to this channel, and we can always keep in touch there as well. If you have any comments, put them in the comment section. And if there's something I can make a movie about or a little video about, I would be more than happy to. Okay, so let's get into this. Now, I don't think there's a time in my life growing up where Nickelodeon or Disney didn't have some type of major role in my childhood. I remember coming home from my grandmother's house, from school to my grandmother's house every Friday, and she had Nickelodeon. Whereas where I lived in Southington, Connecticut, they didn't have Nickelodeon at the time. So I would go over there and I watch all these great shows. You can't do that on television. You see all these turkey television. Like I watched like Lassie. I watched Dennis the Menace. I watched The Mysterious Cities of Gold. All of these amazing shows. And originally they were more they really weren't live action so much. It was more cartoons. But then you had Mr. Wizard and everything else. Now, Nickelodeon is a Canadian-based company, and they were in direct competition with the Disney Channel that had already come out in the 70s, late 70s. But both of them networked all of their programming directly to children. It was a way for Disney, for the Disney Channel, to promote their movies, specials that were only found on the Disney Channel, and so many other things. So it had a place for them to basically archive and play their movies when they wanted to, which Disney has quite gotten away from nowadays. I remember back in the day, you could see the Apple Dumpling Gang. You could see some of these movies that just didn't really make it into the VHSs of the day. And now it's only one or two shows, and that's all they play constantly, and it's the same shows over and over and over and over and over again. However, they used to be good. I don't believe that they're as good as they used to be, even 2 to 3 years ago. So Nickelodeon now, they kind of got away from the typical, daytime children's videos and shows. I'm talking like, let's see here. What did they have? The little I think it was called The Little Elf, and some of these other things, or the gnome, the Happy Gnome, and they kind of went into more of the adult, more preteen to teen action movies, action television, where they were more live action. So around the late 1990s, early 2000s, we started to see shows like Zoey 101. We started to see shows like Victorious and iCarly, and let's see, there's another one too, that Henry Danger, and all these other shows coming about. One of the main people that was not only the creator but the director of these television shows was a man named Dan Schneider. I had no idea Dan Schneider was so bad, okay? I mean, all the wonderful shows that he brought to us was fun, endearing, and exciting. I particularly loved Victorious a lot because I was always into the acting. I was always into the arts, and that really kind of focused on those topics. So even though I was an adult, I still like watching these children's shows. Plus, it gives me an idea of what the children are being shown today. So I like to stay on top of it. But it kind of started about, I don't know, maybe a month ago when Jeanette McCurdy, who played Sam Puckett on iCarly, and she also played Sam Puckett on Sam and Cat, came out after Sam and Cat was completely dissolved, and was talking about her experience at Nickelodeon. And honestly, she said that the roles didn't quite fulfill her. And if you ever watch Sam Puckett, she was always eating meat. Which is kind of sexualized if you kind of think about it in a way. She's always had some type of meat in her mouth. She was a bully, and she was basically a sidekick to Carly Shay. Now, she was talking about some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes with her. Hers was more behind the scenes. She had been taken pictures of by Dan Schneider in her bikini. And he also did a lot of other things that she was talking about that was just questionable to a child at this time. Most of these kids were under the age of 16 years old. Some of them were a little bit older, but not an adult yet. So to push this type of behavior on them is basically towards a minor child, an adult going after a minor child. And after Sam and Cat was dissolved, Nickelodeon offered her $300,000 to just basically shut her mouth and never say anything. She didn't take the money, so she could come out and say something about it. Now, at the same time as iCarly was victorious, and we have some scenes that I have been watching, and I could not believe that I saw that now, where Kat Valentine, played by Ariana Grande, the super pop star that's out there today, was sexualized on screen. Let me tell you about some of the things that she was caught doing. They had her take a potato, and she was squeezing the potato with her hands, going like this. And then she was making a grunting sound. You know, what do you think that's supposed to symbolize? The other things that she would be doing was they had her sucking on her feet one time in her bed in pajamas. The other time that they had her on there, she was laying over the edge of the bed, and she was pouring water all over her body. 3 very sexually insinuative situations for a child that Dan Schneider was behind the video watching as he was directing this particular show. It is disgusting. And since that came out, which happened right after Jeanette McCurdy, we also have some of the people on Zoey 101, which I believe, if you can remember, that was Britney Spears' sister was on that as well. I think her name was Alexis, and she had mentioned that she didn't feel safe around Dan Schneider when she was behind the scenes on set. That makes you wonder. These are children. Children are generally, especially teens, are generally pretty open. It takes a lot for them to kind of be standoffish, especially by somebody that was supposed to be your boss. You know what I mean? Kids are generally, they want to engage with them. They have questions about them. And for somebody to completely not even go near this man, that says volumes. And after all of these things came about, Dan Schneider, they did a protest for Dan Schneider, who, don't quote me on this, he may still be a part of the Nickelodeon workers. I'm not sure. And they were protesting it. And they were, of course, protesting the fact that Nickelodeon did nothing to protect these children while they were in the employment of Nickelodeon. Makes you wonder how many other children along these years have felt the same thing. it's quite disturbing. It's really disturbing to me. And how far did things actually go sometimes? I don't know. I'd like to know. So now let's skip to Disney. Now, Disney recently, just in this past summer, had leaked tape from some of their executives telling them that they are pushing the LGBTQ trans queer agenda. So they're basically going for the transgender and the gender queer, and they're pushing this inside of their shows, their cartoons. They're sexualizing it. They're pushing women's superiority. They're pushing all other things, and they're grooming and indoctrinating. That set a fury of hate going across the entire United States towards Disney, towards the Disney Channel and the executives. I think within a month, they had a record amount of people cancel their Disney Plus accounts. If you happen to have your Disney Plus account, or you're going to get a Disney Plus account, you're going to get an extra rate discount on any of their hotels or resorts across the state of Florida when you come in, even cruises. It makes you say something, doesn't it? If they were willing to give a discount because there was such a massive drop in approval of Disney Plus, that says something. That says that the people don't want what they're pushing. However, they're going to still continue to push it. I think the biggest problem with this is that the executive, the CEO, has two children. One is considered, one I believe she calls as trans, and the other one is pansexual. When somebody pushes something this strongly, one of two things is happening. One of them is that they're trying to jump on a bandwagon so much to make sure that their children are accepted in every aspect of this life, that they're going to force it upon other people. The other thing that could happen is that they're so embarrassed that they overindulge. It's one of those two. And honestly, if we stop bringing it up all the time when we walk everywhere and try to force it into our television shows, nobody would care. I can tell you that nobody would care. But that's the way we're going. Finally, let's also talk about the Disney parks. They also mentioned that in Disney parks, they were going to go to a genderless narrative, meaning that is supposed to saying before the fireworks, attention all men and women, boys and girls of all ages. They're saying Imagineers, attention Imagineers, which I don't really have a problem with. I really don't. I mean, that's not that bad. But they're still pushing the LGBTQ transgender agenda in their parks. Why? What does that matter? I do know that there is a huge amount of transgender and gay people that work inside the parks. So they're probably trying to pander to their employees. But honestly, when I go to Disney World, I don't think about sex. I don't think about gender. I don't give a shit what anybody's doing or looking like. I'm just there for fun. I'm there to enjoy the magic that's around me. And if you're going to be pushing that kind of stuff on me, I'm not going to have fun. I think the worst time that I had ever had at Disney World was when I went during the gay Pride Day. There was a man, okay, that was dressed up like a unicorn. He had a little head horn sticking out of his head. He had hooves on his hands. He was in a suspender that came down to these really tight chaps that went down, assless chaps. Behind him, he had no underwear on. You could see everything. And they allowed him to go in the park like this. There's kids right next to him. People were pointing at him. And then that guy's going to be like, why are they doing this? This is discrimination. No, it's not. You just made a spectacle of yourself. And I think you actually enjoy the negativity that comes around because you're at least getting some attention. That was a real turnoff to me. I have no problem with the LGBTQ. I have no problem with people being themselves. People should be proud of whoever they are, but there's ways to promote it and be proud just by walking down the street, keeping your head up, not having to talk about it all the time. Just be yourself, as opposed to going ahead and wearing stuff like that. That's disgusting. That's vulgar. And honestly, there's a lot of people that just don't want to see that. But yet you didn't take into consideration anybody else that went into that park. You're just like, I'm gay, I can do whatever I want. No, you can't. Not when there's children around. If you want to go into the Pulse Club and do that, be my guest. Everybody, there's one thing. When you take it into a family-oriented place and say, because I'm gay, I have the right to do whatever I want and dress however I want, fine. Do you know that at the age of 7, a girl cannot come in dressed as a princess? But you can come in dressed as a half-naked unicorn? Wow. Blows my mind. I'm all for being you, but there are limitations on what I will accept and what I won't accept. You will never see me walking around in something like that, because I'm not gonna partake in that. It's degrading to me as a human being. I am not respecting myself acting like that. How can I respect others? And how can I expect that respect to come back? Let's also talk about one of the most outrageous things I've ever heard. I think it was around 2018 or 19, right before COVID hit. There was a bust at the Polk County, in Polk County. Grady Judd, who's the sheriff, had made a child pornography sting, child predators, or people that were soliciting children in any way, shape, or form, whether or not they actually did something yet or not, but they were online engaging in these children. Out of the 12 people that were busted, more than half of them were employees at Disney World. Here's another shocking thing. Some of them had prior arrest, which means that they are on the sexual predator list. If Disney had done any bit of homework, and I know that they do background checks because I know people that have worked there, that shows up. It does. You can't tell me otherwise. I'm not on glue. I know that's there. Disney overlooked it because they were gay. They were MAPs. That's what they're calling themselves now, MAPs. Minor attracted people, as opposed to pedophiles, because it doesn't sound good. They're trying to normalize that too. And Disney's also trying to push this as well. And that's wrong. Pedophiles are pedophiles are pedophiles. Deal with it. There's nothing normal about wanting to be with an adolescent child. It's disgusting. So around the same time, they had already implemented what do you call them? Metal detectors and high security locations before you even walked into the park, because they didn't want you to bring a gun in the park because of what happened at the Pulse nightclub. But they're not protecting you from the people that are helping your children get on the ride, who were minor attracted people, pedophiles. They didn't have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. And I'm calling them out. Finally, I don't remember if you know this, but in 2019, there was a show called Andy Mack. It didn't last but a season and a half. And they canceled it abruptly, only because of the fact that there was a lot of controversy that was surrounding the show. Had the controversy not gone so viral, I don't think it would be as big of a problem. But at the beginning, Andy Mack was this young girl, and she believed that the two people that raised her were her mom and dad. However, her actual sister was her mother. And because of the fact that there was like some issues with, being an unwed mother, the mom and dad took the child and claimed and raised her as her own. Eventually, her sister told her daughter that she was actually her mother and that the two people that she was raised by were her grandparents. It was actually kind of a neat story. But the grandfather had been caught soliciting children online. He was arrested for it. They stopped production for a little bit. He came back. They put him on an Indian sabbatical to India and to find himself in the show. And even after all of this happened, he made 2 or 3 cameo appearances back on the show. This is where I think I really have a big problem with this, because they wrote him off the show because of his character, because of what he was busted for. But they brought him back on anyway. They didn't bring on another actor. They brought him back, further putting the children on the set in danger. Just saying. These networks don't care about you. These networks don't care about the children that they work with. You cannot convince me of this anyways. They are a political machine being forced to push an indoctrinating agenda that you may or may not agree with. And I'm not saying it's just because of having a character that is transgender or gay. No problem with that. But they're pushing the ideology behind the trans movement, that everybody is genderless. Genderless comes up from up here, not what you have in your pants. It is okay, well, if you feel this way, maybe you are truly transgender and you need to do something about that. That's what they're pushing. This is where we have, and if you go to YouTube right now, some of the young children that are in the early 20s that have been transitioning since they were a teenager, that believed this narrative that, oh, well, I'm socially inept. Maybe I like men, so I'm really transgender. They get themselves completely altered medically, and now have inoperable or unfixable changes. And they're devastated. A lot of them are even threatening to commit suicide on video. This is what we're doing. I have no problem with anybody being transgender. I have no problem with anybody being genderqueer or non-binary, whatever you want to call yourselves. No problem with it. But before anything should be done physically and medically to anybody that thinks that they might be transgender, they should go through a rapid amount of mental help by a therapist that isn't in it just for the money and isn't in it just to give them what they want. Because all of those people that are detransitioning truly were not transgender, but they were given the green light to go ahead and do so. They ruin lives. We are ruining lives. We're ruining children. This is why I have no problem with no talk about sex in school. Shouldn't happen. However, there should be a safe space for them to talk about it, and then that teacher should bring it up with the children's parents. Then the children's parents should get together with the children and the teacher, and then they should make an idea of what they need to do and where they need to go to, and go to a reputable psychologist that will give them the accurate an accurate diagnosis, not a diagnosis based upon pushing an agenda. So we don't hurt children. Our networks are not helping. They're helping to push that narrative. So people are thinking they're pushing sexuality on our children. They're making our children sexual desired beings. Stop it. It's up to us to stop this. It's up to us to write to these networks, Nickelodeon, to Disney, and say, stop this. If we don't, they're going to continue to do what they are doing now and harming our children. Our children's safety is not in the hands of the community. It starts right here. And if we're not involved with our children's lives more, things like what we're seeing on television, misdiagnosed transitions, people having children behind their backs and getting abortions behind our backs is going to continue to grow and fester. We have to be more in tune with our children. We have to be that person that the child wants to come to and not afraid to leave and go somewhere else and find it with a teacher or a guidance counselor. They need to come to us. We need to build this up. We need to watch what is being shown on television. We need to have open discussions about it. It's okay to be exposed to it. It's different to not go over it with them and help them understand it better, because they might realize, oh, that's really not me, even though when they hear it on there, oh yeah, that is me. We need to be more involved in our children's lives. I'm not saying be a helicopter parent. What I am saying is that we need to look at our children more, what they're seeing, what they're doing, and take a more proactive role. We also need to write to these networks to better protect the children actors, to stop sexualizing the children, to stop putting these innuendos inside of their programming and their parks, and to tell them we just don't want it. We just don't want it. I know that everybody wants to be represented. We have gay people that want to see gay characters. That's fine. But don't make a big to-do over it. In fact, 90% of the stuff I see on television, they don't even have like boyfriend and girlfriends where they kiss. But yet they have every gay person kissing and doing all kinds of other things. Can't do that. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope I made you think. I hope that we can expose Dan Schneider more. I believe he should be brought to some type of restitution for what he's done, whether that be jail time, money, whatever. Nickelodeon needs to pay for this because they continue to let it slide under the table. Disney, the same thing. Let's band together and let's protect our children. So until next time, guys, I'll have more for you. Also, you can see all the celebrities that I talked to and interesting topics that we bring up. And I hope to see you next time. So until then, bye.
Like, OMG, you were on TV and junk.